Good morning again. It's the morning briefing on the Celtic way. Just a couple more afternoons to get out of the way until Celtic's second leg of the qualifier against FC Midtjylland in the Champions League second round. Still, I know that Celtic didn't have a great season last year, but it still feels slightly unfair that all these qualifying rounds have to be tackled and out of the way before the proper, considering that how many teams can get straight into the Champions League. But that's just the way the world works. And Celtic have to navigate Midtjylland before playing very, very likely to be PSV in the next round there. 5-1 up against Galatasaray from the first leg. So it's a massive game for Celtic. I don't think that the team will look too much different from last week. Sean, a couple of question marks maybe, considering that Nir Bitton started and is suspended. You'd expect Murray to probably play alongside Stephen Welsh.
I mean, as I said yesterday, I don't think there'll be any changes from the lineup against West Ham on Saturday. And again, like Dane Murray, Ange was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place where he either didn't play Murray against West Ham in case he get the runaround, which he did anyway, or give him the kind of game time with Stephen Welsh that they've not had together and hope that it pays off in the Midtjylland game. And I think he probably... the way that we'll find out if that was the right call is how he plays against Midtjylland tomorrow, because I think he will start. So I think that's what the basis of the West Ham performance will be.
How frustrating is it, mate, that Furuhashi and Starfelt are now Celtic players, but they can't because of the isolation periods that are necessary. These two big signings have been made, and I know that they were made with time running out for the Champions League qualifiers anyway, but they're in the door now and they can't play any part until this isolation period is met.
I mean, that's just, it is what it is. I mean, the club surely knew that, so I mean, it was up to them to get the deal over the line in time if they wanted them to play in the qualifiers. It's really simple as that for me. They knew when the deadlines for these things were. They knew what would happen if you sign someone and they had to quarantine, how long they would be unavailable for, and they still waited. So
that might be a concern, to be honest, considering that the league starts this weekend. That if a signing is made this weekend, it could be another 10 days until a signing is able to play. So it's not like they can guarantee to get someone in the door for the PSV game, for example, someone else in the door if should Celtic make it through.
But again, like they knew this the whole time. That's kind of the problem. There's very little you can do if you're going to wait, especially under the current circumstances. So basically, for me, it just comes back to the club. If they wanted to have the players in time, they would have.
It's maybe different, if Celtic go ahead and sign Kevin Nisbet or something like that. It's where these rules don't have to be applied, but for European qualifiers, and could end up being one of the Europa League qualifiers against Jablonec, and then see what happens from there. That these are vital. It must be like it's frustrating for the Celtic fans, but you're pinning the blame on the board, and they should have known this. It might not be as easy as that. Signing players can be quite a hard business.
No, definitely. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't mitigating factors, but at the end of the day, they did know what was going to happen. So either identify targets that you think you can get in time, or work faster to get them in time, because ultimately it's not the board that need to go on the pitch, and it's not the board that need to coach the team. So it's Ange that's really been left short with it. Yeah,
Odsonne Edouard is one that will probably, if he will play against Midtjylland, I'm sure. Do you expect it to be his last game for Celtic? There's conflicting rumours around Brighton, and some press down there saying no, they're not interested, but some people seem absolutely certain they'll be coming in with a bid once the qualifier's done.
I think, I agree with you. I definitely expect him to play. Ayeti has travelled, as far as I'm aware, so that is a bonus. But again, I think it will be as you were with Edouard up top, and if it is to be his last game, then I would hope that he would go into it with the attitude of, one last hurrah and all that, and gives us a performance.
Yeah, Lee Griffiths hasn't travelled. I think at the moment that's kind of neither here nor there for most Celtic fans. Is that along the right lines?
I would think so. I mean, maybe neither here nor there. It's maybe a more of a stance than that. I think maybe some of them, certainly on Saturday, there were cheers as well as jeers. So it does seem a polarising topic. In terms of the game tomorrow, I mean, as a player, it's always good to have him to throw on, but he's not there. And I mean, as I say, Edouard will start, so you would think Ayeti will be the one they turn to if he's got to come off.
And Abada, he impressed last week, didn't he? And it would be great to see him kick on.
I think so. I mean, the kind of the question would be how fit is James Forrest, but I think, to be honest, on the assumption that he's not ready to start, even though he made a cameo appearance against West Ham, I think Abada's actually done well enough to start anyway just now without anyone feeling too upset. And Forrest, if he's capable, can come on later if need be.
And is that with Christie then on the left?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, he's played so well the first couple of games under Ange. I think he'll start.
Now, the one thing I saw that online this morning, just when I was trolling the social media, was quite interesting that Celtic have a sticky situation with the goalkeeper at the moment. Barkas isn't really doing too much to convince the fans that he is the rightful number one. Scott Bain has floated in and out of that position on occasion over the past couple of years and has done the same. Conor Hazard's got his little run in the team last year, played in the final, but again, yeah, still a pretty young player for a goalkeeper. There is one player that Celtic let go recently, which was Craig Gordon. Is it quite ironic that he probably would be starting for Celtic right now, and yet we're facing him on the opening day?
I think that irony was evident last year as well, to be honest. But I mean, it does look poor in retrospect that they would let him go as well. To be honest, I was always quite a big fan of Gordon, to be honest. Even before he came to Celtic, I always thought it was a bit special. For me, probably still the most talented Scottish goalkeeper of the past couple of decades. But ultimately, whatever happened with Forster last year, we'd made a decision that Craig Gordon wasn't going to play. He didn't want to just sit on the bench, so it seemed to suit both parties at the time. It is, in hindsight, poor, but it is just what it is now. Barkas is who we've got, and that's, I think, who he's going to keep rolling with.
And with shot stopping, Gordon, I think, far outqualifies the others. I was reading interesting stats yesterday that maybe shot stopping isn't the most important thing for a Celtic goalkeeper to have, because they face less shots than your average goalkeeper, considering how much possession they'll have and sometimes how little opportunities the opposition have in the Celtic box. So it's about involving the goalkeeper in the play, and therefore the comfort they have with their feet and the distribution quality that they possess is more important.
I don't know if it's more important. Certainly in the modern game, it's as important now if you're going to play that style of football. But I mean, let's not beat about the bush. You've still got to save the shots when they come in. And right now, Barkas is all right. He's pulled off a couple of saves, but even the saves that he made against West Ham, I mean, one of our columnists, Boys Analytics, pointed out on Twitter the positioning was poor for the ones that he did save as well. So it is a major concern, the performances he's putting in. So while he's seemingly quite confident with the ball at his feet, he's still a goalkeeper, so he still has to be making the saves when he's called upon.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. That Barkas may be judged to be pretty good with his feet or able to distribute the ball well, but you have to find a balance to that. Of course, otherwise you're just an outfield player with some gloves on. Well,
that's it. I mean, on Barkas, I mean, I came into this season perhaps misguidedly optimistic that everything just went wrong for him last season, like it did for the majority of the squad and the club as a whole, really. I thought, he's not only moved to a new country, not being able to really experience the city, the club, or his teammates, really, because of the pandemic, and then the defenders in front of him were chopping and changing and not having a great season either way. I thought, maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here, but the fact in the opening few games, he still can't seem to make quite fundamental goalkeeping decisions means that optimism's fading quite fast for me. So it's still a major concern for me.
Is there a mutual trust thing that needs to be developed here between a consistent centre-half pairing and a goalkeeper? Because
I think so.
Changed a lot last season. So when Celtic have Starfelt and Julian fit at the same time, and Orwelsh, who is capable, plus Barkas, they can build a relationship where they learn each other's game on the park as well as the training ground.
I think you're spot on. I think that does make a massive difference. I'm not saying that will make Barkas suddenly make the correct decisions all the time, but he might stop overthinking things a wee bit if he trusts the defenders in front of him more. But again, that's not me putting it on the young boys in front of him, because he is more than experienced enough to put that to one side for kind of basic saves, and he doesn't seem to be doing that just now. But I mean, we've talked before about Fraser Forster and stuff. I think the club won't give up on Barkas after paying a good amount for him. I think he will be our number one this season. I think what you said there is spot on. I think we need to hope that Starfelt and Julian gel quite quickly, along with presumably the other defenders that need to be coming in, especially at right back, and that kind of prevents Barkas from being too exposed. I realise that's not ideal, because you shouldn't really be basing that on not exposing your goalkeeper. You should trust him when he's exposed, but I still think that's where we're at.
Do you think the price tag is an unfair factor in this? It's not Barkas's fault that the fee that was agreed was quite significant, relatively speaking, for a club of Celtic's current standing in the European market.
No, I mean, it's never a player's fault what somebody's willing to pay for you, but it's still up to the player on the pitch, and I don't think that the errors that he's been making would be any less pronounced if he cost 500k, if you know what I mean. I still think people would have basic concerns, fundamental concerns about the decision making. Okay,
well, the centre mid three at the minute seems to be fairly set with Sorrow, McGregor and Turnbull. I think that I saw a few suggestions. I don't know if this is fair or unfair. I'll put it to you that Turnbull needs to get on the ball and create more, and not just from set pieces. How have you viewed his start to the season?
Slower than I expected. And against West Ham on Saturday, I was quite disappointed that I didn't see him kind of in the final third quite as often as I expected, because McGregor got up, Christie was great, linking up with Edouard. Edouard came deep as usual, as is his wont. But for Turnbull, I mean, I think he's a smashing player. He's the bright spark from last season. I think he will adapt. I still think he's got it in him. He doesn't quite have the kind of bite of the likes of Christie or McGregor in terms of the way that Ange wants to press opponents and stuff. But I mean, he can certainly thrive in that system if he adapts a wee bit.
Yeah, Christie especially, he has an aggressive streak about his game. I think it's a controlled aggression, but you can see it in his face and his eyes really when Christie's up for it. Turnbull's much more a chill guy, you know. He's a lot more relaxed out there.
I think so. But that, I mean, we can't really be judging too much on his demeanour. I've no doubt he does care as much as Christie does. It's just Christie kind of shows it, more heart on sleeve type. He's always been like, he was like that at Cali Thistle and Aberdeen on loan and stuff as well. He's like that with Scotland. You've seen what he was like with Scotland. He does wear his heart on his sleeve all the time. Aye,
absolutely. Now, how important do you think this game is tomorrow? Are you in the camp where, you know, Champions League qualification, we have to be setting that as a target, and we have to be doing everything we can to get there? Or is it no big deal if Celtic get knocked out tomorrow and end up having to qualify for the Europa League?
I don't think it's ever no big deal if Celtic don't qualify for the Champions League. But as always, context is going to be key. It depends how we play. I do think we're better, judging by last week's game. So I think we should win, even with what we're talking about, the young guys having to play at the back and probably having to start Ralston still at right back and stuff. I do still think there was enough in that game last week to say we should win. So it depends on the context if we don't, as to whether it's a disaster or whether it's something we can still take positives from. As you said, it's going to be a hard game next if we do get through. So we just need to face that when it comes. But
if Midtjylland were to run out 5-0 winners tomorrow, or Celtic were to narrowly lose in extra time, I think it's important that there's no overreaction. Similar if Celtic go to Midtjylland and win 3-0. There can't be any overreaction. I mean, this is still a very early stage in Postecoglou's Celtic management career. Some things are going to go wrong. I'm sure some things already have gone pretty wrong in the friendly against West Ham. I think that regardless of how Celtic do tomorrow, there can be no hyperbole about the situation. You know, it's hard to start jumping to conclusions when this is only his second competitive game.
I totally agree with you. I think Ange himself, when he's dealing with the media, like the immediate post-match pressers and stuff, he's been quite forthright. I don't think he's in under any kind of shock about what's ahead of him. But I mean, he said after the West Ham game, as much as it was a friendly, that he wasn't happy with the kind of competitiveness that they didn't show. And he mentioned like that he can't shield the players, and I think that is probably what he will do if the situation calls for it. Despite the fact that he said that, he done it against Midtjylland last week. If you remember, you spoke about it yourselves last week. Like he said after that game, it was all on him. They were underprepared. It wasn't really. We all know that it's not up to him to make Beaton keep the head, and it's not up to him to show Bargh how to parry a ball or punch a ball, catch a ball, whatever. So like I still think I agree with you. It's more about the context to me, and no overreaction would be the way to go regardless of the result. I think you're on mute, Andy.
I am. I muted myself a minute ago because the dog was thrashing a toy about in the floor off the laminate. Yeah, I don't think you'd be alone, or any Celtic fan would be alone, if they were to suggest that the first 4 or 5 games of the league season, or up until the game at Ibrox anyway, are more important than this qualifier against Midtjylland tomorrow. Because if Celtic get off to a really slow start domestically, playing catch up against, let's not try and hide from the fact, a Rangers team that have just beaten a Real Madrid side, albeit kind of made up half of reserves, half of first team players, is no mean feat. And Celtic, the last thing they can afford to be doing really is playing catch up at an early stage with a new manager who's trying to implement a new style.
Well, exactly. I mean, let's not read too much into that friendly result, right enough. I mean, our Hibs are going down and challenging for Champions League places in the Premier League, I suppose. But no, I do take your point though, and I agree that a good start in the league arguably is more important, given the situation. But I still think when you're Celtic, they're all important anyway. So it's more about the way that we play tomorrow. If the result goes against us, but it still shows that there's progress towards what Ange is trying to do, then you can still take the positives from it. But likewise, if we get absolutely brushed aside, there would be serious questions. But again, like you say, you can't really overreact 3-4 games into a season. You need to give him the time. He said that himself.
Yeah, I mean, look, good Celtic manager. Look at Strachan, the Bratislava debacle. That was his first season, and Celtic went on to have a really successful tenure under him. I actually would go as far to say it's wrong, and these things are a matter of opinion, but I do believe it's wrong to start jumping down a manager's throat and jump to conclusions after he's been in the job for a matter of weeks. And look, these are good players that Celtic have. They're not miracle workers. They're not world class. They're good players, and a lot of them are at elite level. People like Odsonne, Edouard, and Callum McGregor. But this is not Barcelona of 2011 that we're talking about here. This is a team that's going to probably need a wee bit of time to gel with a manager that they've all just met and maybe even heard of for the first time 6 weeks ago.
No, that's correct. I mean, and he's also, you've got to remember, as much as they're professional footballers, they're still getting used to a new style of play. You see what he wants his fullbacks to do. There's no way that Taylor or Ralston have ever done that as a fullback before. So like different things like that he's trying to instill in them, it will take time. And that is basically, from what I've read from his previous clubs, that is kind of what he needs. Obviously with Celtic, there's the caveat that you do need to win while you're getting that time. But in terms of getting the system right and the style right and getting the players playing the way he wants them to play, it can only take time.
Yeah, I have no doubt though, despite what we're saying here and how the prism in which we view these things, if Celtic do get knocked out by Midtjylland and then Hearts win at the weekend, that I'm not going to say the knives will be out, but there will already serious question marks will be hanging over Postecoglou's head, just the way that the cookie crumbles when you're a Celtic manager. Whereas if Celtic go to Denmark and win, and then comfortably take care of Hearts at the weekend, it will be the complete opposite. The view will be, wow, we're going to go and win the league here, then just because of the way that the optimism and the glass half full or half empty looks.
I mean that comes back to what you said there about trying our best not to overreact one way or the other to whatever happens tomorrow night. And I think that is the key takeaway from this chat.
Yeah, and I think that David Boy here is making a fair point in the comments, saying that it could take at least 18 months and 3 windows to get the players in that Ange Postecoglou wants and get them playing his style. And I think that's a very fair point. But when ever would a Celtic manager that struggles for 18 months be given that opportunity? I mean, I think what has happened with Gerrard over the river, with the fact that they had a trophyless couple of seasons and Gerrard remained in a job, I think that he was given a bit of compassion because of the virus cut the second season short. But that was rare that Gerrard was kept in that job. And I don't think that from a Celtic point of view, if it took 18 months and Celtic were underperforming continually, that Postecoglou would get that time.
No, I agree. I don't think he would either. There was also a difference across the road in that they didn't really win much at all, whereas we're used to winning as well, which in a way shouldn't, but it will count against them. It would count against any manager that came in this season, I think, no matter reputation. But again, to me, context is everything. It depends how we play. It depends the manner in which we play. The manner in which the results fall. I think it's easy to say give them 18 months, but I think the context will matter as the months go on.
Well, we've got a piece going out on the website today. Myself, you, and Alison McConnell, we will all try and predict who Celtic will be taking to the field with against Midtjylland tomorrow night, and what is a big occasion for Postecoglou. You know, if Celtic do get this over the line, what a shot in the arm it'll be for him and the players ahead of the league opener against Hearts. So yeah, we'll get that online later and you can read our thoughts then. But for the meantime, thanks for joining Sean and I on the morning briefing.
Cheers.